The First Ukraine War, Russo-Ukrainian War, that began in 2014, when Russia first intervened militarily in Ukraine, 8 years before the full-scale invasion in 2022. Here's a clear overview of that conflict's history. Background: pre-2014. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine became an independent country. Ukraine maintained close cultural and economic ties with Russia but also developed aspirations to join Western institutions like the European Union (EU) and NATO. This division, between pro-European and pro-Russian political orientations, shaped Ukraine's domestic politics for decades. Euromaidan and political upheaval, 2013 to 2014. In November 2013, Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, seen as pro-Russian, suspended a planned association agreement with the EU favoring closer ties with Russia. Massive protests erupted in Kyiv's Maidan Nezalezhnosti, Independence Square, known as the Euromaidan movement. The protests grew after police violence and turned into a broader call for democracy and an end to corruption. In February 2014, after months of unrest and deadly clashes, Yanukovych fled to Russia. Ukraine formed a new interim government. Annexation of Crimea, February-March 2014. Almost immediately, unmarked Russian soldiers, Little Green Men, began seizing government and military sites in Crimea Peninsula in southern Ukraine. Russia organized a disputed referendum in March 2014, after which it annexed Crimea, claiming it as part of the Russian Federation. The move was widely condemned by the UN, EU, and US, which considered it a violation of international law and Ukraine's sovereignty. War in the Donbass, April 2014, 2021. Following Crimea's annexation, pro-Russian separatists declared people's republics in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, collectively called the Donbass. Fighting broke out between Ukrainian government forces and separatist militias, who were backed, armed, and often led by Russian forces. Thousands of soldiers and civilians were killed, millions were displaced. Despite Russia's denial, international investigations found evidence of direct Russian military involvement. Attempts at peace. The Minsk Protocol, September 2014, and Minsk II, February 2015, were agreements brokered by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, France and Germany, the Normandy format. These deals sought ceasefires, local elections, and autonomy for the separatist areas but were never fully implemented. Sporadic fighting continued for years, creating a frozen conflict. Consequences and legacy. By 2021, over 13,000 people had died in the conflict. Ukraine strengthened ties with the West, receiving military aid and pursuing reforms to integrate with the EU and NATO. Russia kept military presence near Ukraine's borders and used the Donbass conflict as leverage over Kyiv. Lead up to the 2022 invasion. In late 2021, Russia began a large military buildup around Ukraine. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion, marking the second and far larger phase of the Russo-Ukrainian War. Would you like me to include a timeline or map overview showing how the 2014 conflict evolved geographically, Crimea and Donbass? If you find this history interesting, like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. See you on our next video.